Well, as we shut down the courthouses, it will limit access, face-to-face access to the county services. That's through the revenue department. But to remind everyone that we still have the online and mail to renew your tags in those businesses. Other provisions have been made for other things that you contact with the courthouse as far as building permits and the things such as that. We intend to administer as much services as we can, but it's very important to limit that personal contact to our individuals.
You know, you brought up some concerns regarding employees and some of the key services like garbage collection, payroll, finances. Were your concerns addressed and answered, and if so, can you explain that to us?
Well, I believe that our concern as relates to our county employees were addressed this morning. My main concern was making sure that while we're also looking out for the needs of the public, that we also take care of our employees as well, and to make sure that as those services are provided, that the public be aware of what services that we are still providing, even with the closing of the courthouse.
And so employees will be notified today, sort of their role, is that what I understand?
Absolutely, and that comes through the county manager's office. We do not direct staff. That is his job, and I know that they are working on it right now to make sure that our employees know which ones that will be volatile and which ones that we believe that we can best direct the public to go online to be able to still have that interaction.
And I understand that the commissioners, when y'all were asking about future meetings, doing it possibly virtually, but they mentioned that by law you cannot vote if you are dialed in electronically. Is that correct? Did I understand that correctly?
That's correct.
So how do we, I know y'all want to do that moving forward and prepare for even future cases possibly like this. So what are the next steps to get to where y'all would be able to vote electronically?
Well, the steps are going to be business as usual, and the voting electronically is going to be a case for another time. What we're doing right now, that was a scenario in case someone became ill, and would we still be able to conduct business through the county? Well, there would still be a majority of commissioners. There would be 3. It requires 3 to have a positive action. So we think that scenario, and we pray that will never occur.
Commissioner Knight, you gave a primer on viruses.
Yes.
Could you just talk a little bit about how it's spread and a little bit about how it can be prevented?
Well, the virus it's really so microscopic you can't see it. So it's spread it's not airborne. It's a droplet that comes from saliva or other bodily fluids, mainly through the upper respiratory tract. But in that little spray, if you sneeze, and sneezing can come out at 100 to 200 miles an hour, which is pretty amazing, but it can come out, and in those little sprays, most of them you don't even see, but in those sprays, if you're infected and have this, that virus can attach to that little droplet, and when it lands on the surface, the liquid will dissipate, but that virus will still be on that surface, and it can survive 3 to 6 days from what I understand. So if it's on a rail and you lean on a rail, if it's on a light switch and you turn on that light, you may pick it up on your hands. So that's another reason why you try to keep the hands from the face. That's a hard thing to do for some of us. I know that. I have a hard time. But that's kind of the basics of why we're putting in, or why we're suggesting, wash your hands frequently. Stay the distance, because you don't want to be in that realm when somebody does cough, sneeze, or even talk. So these droplets, if you're infected, that's the danger. And once it gets into your body, it attacks the cells in the lungs. And once it gets in those cells, it will then multiply. We don't have a cure, we don't have a vaccine yet, but we treat the symptoms. In other words, you don't want the fever to really spike. That's what you really have to be aggressive, because once the inflammation starts, the process even accelerates more. So that's one of the things that, and it's sort of like having the flu. You want to stay hydrated, you want to get rest, you want to get over this, but this is an unknown. It's never appeared before. Probably came from an animal, crossed over to an animal, to the human. But this thing, the SARS virus back in 2002, like 9,000 cases worldwide, 775 deaths. This is already well surpassed that at a rapid pace. So we don't even know, because of the testing issues, who has it. How many of us right here would test positive? We don't know. But we're getting the testing ramped up so that then we can put the process in. And then that's why everybody's putting in these emergency measures. Stop everything for a couple of weeks so that it doesn't continue to spread, because it can double, the number of cases can double in 10 days, 5 to 6 days. So yesterday we had 11 cases in Alabama. Today we have 22. Is that double because, it spread that quickly? No, that's double because we're just now getting the testing and can test, people for it. But it's a very rapid, and this started in November in China, and look where we already are. So we have to just try to stem the tide of that giant wave coming at us, and we do that by putting these measures in place to do what we can to stop this onslaught.
Commissioner Stevens, you've been here through bankruptcy, tornadoes. Where does this compare as far as the challenges the county is facing?
This is going to make all of those pale by comparison with the social impact that it's going to have on our citizens and the economic impact moving forward. It's going to be a challenging time, but this commission will work together in a bipartisan manner to make sure that it's done properly.
Life as we know it a month ago has changed drastically and will continue to change. So everybody has to just, but try not to panic, because 100% of us on this earth are going to die. 99.99% are not going to die from the coronavirus. So we have to remember that, but we do have to take the steps, because if we did nothing, a third of our population in this United States could be affected over a certain period of time. So we have to take the steps now to stop the spread.
My final question, Commissioner Scales, you talked about the employees. What is your understanding of the employees, about whether they'll be paid and whether they have to come into the courthouse and work?
Well, the employees will continue to get paid based upon the fact that they still will be able to remotely work on behalf of the county through online services. Let me also say this as we do come to a close, that all of us as a commission, we are concerned about the general public. We know that the entire county makeup at this point is 12, and we can see more cases that probably will develop. The key for us is to make sure that our citizens are medically safe, our employees are safe, we're still providing quality service at a rapid pace, and that we don't lose for lack of better words, that we don't lose the strength of what our county represents. We have certainly encountered a lot over the years, but I think that this too shall pass. The key to all of this is just to make sure that we are putting out accurate information, having one voice, and making sure that the county is properly being represented in those conversations that need to take place. So I think we're in a good place. We're just doing what needs to be done, and it's not so much of just the virus alone that will impact the public. Is how we respond, and we're trying to respond as appropriately as possible.
I have one more question. In terms of Cooper Green getting testing, where do we stand on that?
Right now, with Cooper Green getting testing, we will know by the end of the day what day that the testing will start and the qualifications, because Grandview is also a site for testing. And I think that we need to understand that the most vulnerable people are our senior citizens and the low income that don't have insurance. So we've got to make sure that they have access to the test and, for treatment also. So we want to make sure that, and they are more in the public than people that have sufficient income.
Now, when we went over to Cooper Green the other day, Mr. Tellis and I, since we're on the Healthcare Authority, just to check on the Cooper Green folks, Laura Hurst, our director over there, She was well ahead of what she needed to do, what she should do. And the reason is, back when she was in Wyoming, she was part of the public disaster response. So she had already experienced the Ebola outbreak, the N1H1. So, you know, she's seasoned. She had already began working on a plan to get testing to come through there. So we're very proud to have her on board, and we're going to take care of those patients.
Just one thing, your medical background, just explain it because you gave a nice primer on it. You are a nurse.
I was a former registered nurse in the trauma unit, former certified registered nurse. Used to put people to sleep in the operating room. Over the years, I've seen a lot, and a lot of times you know what's coming. Here we don't. But I've seen patients on ventilators in hospitals, and if you get overwhelmed with people needing ventilators in the hospitals, we have a limited supply. So if we've got 1,000 patients that need ICU care on a ventilator, for example, UAB probably has about 300 ventilators. So then what choices do you have? So that's why we're trying to get this thing from not spiking real quickly. They keep talking about the curve and the spike. That's why, because you don't want to overwhelm your resources. And our medical personnel are, gosh, they're exposed. They're already starting to get sick. So if your medical personnel can't treat, then what do? They're going to probably call us old timers out of